Hello, my dear listeners. Before we begin today's story, I want to send a special hug to three lovely members of our community. Charlotte from Pretoria, South Africa, Jan Walker from Northern England, UK, and Nana from Tennessee, USA. It's such a joy to have you here with me. Thank you for every message and every kind word. And what about you? Who's listening right now? Have you told me where you're tuning in from? Leave it in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories are reaching. And who knows, maybe your name will be featured in the next video too. Now then, let's begin today's story. The funeral had ended only 3 days ago when the doorbell rang. Natalie Barnes sat on the couch in the small country house, surrounded by boxes of used tissues and cold tea, when she heard the sharp sound cutting through the heavy silence of grief. She considered ignoring it. She had no energy for condolence visits. No energy for more awkward hugs from neighbors who'd never really known James Barnes. But the doorbell rang again. Insistent. Professional. With legs that felt like lead, Natalie dragged herself to the door, opened it, and froze completely. The man on the porch didn't belong in this small village. Impeccable suit, dark gray that probably cost more than her car, perfectly styled black hair, equally dark eyes that studied her with an intensity that made her want to slam the door in his face. He held a leather briefcase and an expression that revealed absolutely nothing. Natalie Barnes, deep voice, controlled, zero warmth. Yes? She gripped the doorknob tighter, an anchor in the middle of disorientation. Nicholas Fairmont, your father's attorney. May we talk? Natalie led him to the living room, still cluttered with things from the funeral. Sympathy cards scattered everywhere, photos of her father all around. She saw Nicholas assess the space with those unreadable dark eyes, but he didn't comment. He simply sat in the armchair her father used to use, and something about seeing a stranger in that sacred place made Natalie's throat tighten. Your father hired me 6 months ago. Nicholas opened the briefcase. To handle legal matters related to his estate and other issues. He pulled out documents. He knew he was sick, the cancer was terminal, and he wanted to make sure you were protected after he was gone. Tears burned in Natalie's eyes. Her father had never said anything. Never mentioned being sick, he just left. Sudden heart attack, the doctors had said, but now this lawyer was saying it was a lie. He didn't want you to know. Nicholas continued, as if reading her thoughts. He thought it would be easier this way. Less time to worry. To suffer in advance. So he lied to me. Natalie's voice came out broken. For 6 months he lied. He protected you, Nicholas corrected, without emotion. As if he were discussing a contract, not her life. And he continued protecting even after. Through the will. He pushed documents across the coffee table. Your father left everything to you, this house. The rare book collection he accumulated, worth approximately $2 million. Investments that guarantee a comfortable monthly income for the rest of your life. Natalie should feel relief, gratitude, but all she felt was a growing emptiness. There's a condition, Nicholas said, and something in his voice changed, became tenser. What kind of condition? Natalie could barely form the words. Nicholas looked at her directly, without blinking, without softening the blow. To receive the inheritance, you need to get married, immediately, to the person your father specifically chose. He paused. To me. The world stopped. Natalie was certain she'd heard wrong. Had to have heard wrong. I'm sorry, what? Your father established in his will that you only receive the full inheritance if you marry me within 30 days of his death. If you refuse, everything goes to charity. That can't be legal. You can't force someone to marry. Technically, I'm not forcing you. You can refuse. But then you lose everything, Nicholas said with that irritating calm. Your father was very specific about the terms. And yes, it's completely legal. I drafted it myself. Natalie was shaking now. From shock, from anger. From grief that was transforming into something darker. Why? Why would my father do this? And why would you agree? For the first time, something crossed Nicholas's face. Something too quick for her to catch. I had my reasons, just as your father had his. What reasons? Who are you? I barely know you. And I don't know you, Nicholas shot back. But your father asked me, and I owed him. Nicholas pulled an envelope from his inner pocket. Her father's handwriting on the front. For Natalie, read before deciding. With trembling hands, Natalie opened it. The letter was short, direct, so characteristic of her father. My dear Natalie, if you're reading this, I'm already gone, and I apologize for not having the courage to say a proper goodbye. I was always a coward about big emotions. Nicholas Fairmont is a good man, better than he appears at first glance. I know asking this seems crazy, but trust me, it's the last time I'll ask anything. You're in danger you can't see yet. People who want what I left you. People who wouldn't hesitate to hurt you to get it. Nicholas can protect you. Will protect you. I gave him my word. Marry him. It doesn't have to be forever. Just long enough for the danger to pass. He understands the terms. I love you more than words can express, and I'm sorry for this final imposition. Always your father, James. Natalie read it 3 times, then looked at Nicholas, who was watching with those impossible-to-decipher eyes. What danger? What's he talking about? Your father had enemies, Nicholas said simply. People who thought he owed them, who wanted part of the book collection, the investments. And now that he's gone, they'll come after you. So this is, protection? You're like a bodyguard with a marriage license? Something like that. He stood. You have until tomorrow to decide. Marry me, stay protected, and receive the inheritance. Refuse. I'll have a clear conscience that I tried, and you'll be vulnerable. He headed toward the door, then stopped. For the record, I don't want this any more than you do, but I made a promise to your father, and I always keep my promises. When the door closed behind him, Natalie was alone with the letter, with the silence, and with an impossible choice. Marry a complete stranger. Or risk everything her father left, and apparently her own life. 24 hours later, Natalie stood in the courthouse wearing the only formal dress she owned, simple navy blue that she'd worn to the funeral. There were no flowers, no guests, just her, Nicholas in a suit even more impeccable than yesterday's, and a courthouse official who looked bored with the fastest ceremony in history. Do you, Natalie Marie Barnes, take Nicholas James Fairmont to be your lawfully wedded husband? His middle name was the same as her father's first name. Coincidence. Natalie looked at Nicholas, searching for, what? Reassurance? Human warmth? But all she saw was a professional mask, as if he were signing a business contract, not a marriage certificate. I do. The words came out automatic, empty. And do you, Nicholas James Fairmont, take Natalie Marie Barnes to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. Firm voice, no hesitation, but also no emotion. Then by the powers vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife. The official didn't even mention a kiss. Just pushed papers for them to sign. It was colder than the funeral. You need to move into my place today, Nicholas said as they left the courthouse. Part of the agreement. We need to look actually married to anyone investigating. Your place? Natalie stopped on the sidewalk. I don't even know where you live. North side of town. Apartment. 2 bedrooms. You'll have your own. Complete privacy. He said it like he was reciting contract terms. A car will pick up your things at 3 this afternoon. You can't just decide everything on your own. Nicholas finally looked at her. Really looked. And there was something in his eyes. A flash of frustration, exhaustion, before the mask returned. Natalie, I know this isn't ideal, for either of us, but your father asked me to keep you safe, and I can't do that if you're alone in that isolated house. He sighed, the first human sound she'd heard from him. Please, just Trust the process for now. It wasn't a demand, but it also wasn't a request. It was something in between that Natalie didn't know how to categorize. "How long?" she asked. "How long do I have to do this?" 6 months, maybe a year. Depends on how quickly certain matters resolve themselves. And after? After, you're free. Clean divorce. You keep everything your father left you. Move on with your life. It was temporary. Natalie clung to that. Temporary and necessary. Okay, 3 o'clock. Nicholas's apartment was exactly what Natalie expected. Modern, minimalist, soulless. Everything in shades of gray and white. No photos, no clutter, no life. "Your room." He opened a door revealing a space larger than her entire country house. King bed, enormous closet, private bathroom with a tub that could fit 3 people. "This is too..." Natalie didn't know how to finish. "Comfortable, I hope." Nicholas set her suitcase on the floor. "There's a gym in the building. Pool. Library on the 10th floor if you want to work. Wi-Fi is open." He was reciting amenities like she was a hotel guest. "Nicholas." Natalie turned to face him. "Can we stop pretending this is normal for 1 second? He froze. "What do you mean?" "I mean, we just got married, and you're treating me like an unwanted tenant. If we're going to do this, live together, pretend to be married, can we at least be honest?" Something changed in his face. The mask slipped just slightly. "You want honesty?" He took a step closer. "Fine. Here it is. I didn't want to get married. Didn't want to complicate my life with another person. But your father was one of the only good people I've known. And when he asked, begged, me to protect you, I couldn't refuse." His voice dropped lower, more intense. "So yes, I'm treating you like a tenant. Because if I treat you like a wife, if I let this become real, it'll hurt 1,000 times more when it ends. And it will end, Natalie. It always ends." The words hung between them, heavy with something Natalie didn't understand but felt in her chest. "What happened to you?" she whispered. "To make you so closed off?" Nicholas laughed, a harsh sound without humor. "That's not part of the contract. My past is mine." He headed toward the door, stopped in the doorway. "Dinner's at 7 if you want to eat. I cook Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You cook Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Sunday we order. House rules." "House rules," Natalie repeated. "Of course, because marriage is about rules." "This one is." Nicholas looked at her over his shoulder, and for the first time, she saw something like regret. "I'm sorry it's not the fairy tale you deserved, but it's the best I can offer." And then he left, closing the door gently behind him. Natalie stood alone in the enormous room, looking at the suitcases that contained her entire life, and thought, what was her father thinking? How would a marriage to a man who barely spoke to her protect her? And why, when Nicholas had looked at her with those dark eyes full of hidden pain, did something in her chest tighten in a way she didn't understand? That night, she discovered the first clue. Exploring Nicholas's personal library, because she couldn't sleep in a strange place, she found a photo, the only one in the entire apartment, hidden between law books. A younger Nicholas, maybe 25, next to a man she recognized instantly, her father. They were laughing, arms around each other's shoulders, like friends, like family. And on the back, in her father's handwriting, to Nicholas, the son I chose when blood failed me, always grateful. James. The son he chose? Nicholas wasn't just her father's lawyer. He was something much, much more. Natalie woke to the smell of coffee and something burning. She checked her phone. 6:15 in the morning. Who was awake at this hour? Stumbling out of her room in old pajamas and messy hair, she followed the smell to the kitchen. Nicholas was there, wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt, the first time she'd seen him in anything other than a suit. He was battling with a frying pan, clearly losing the fight against eggs that should have been scrambled, but looked more like charred rubber. You said you cooked on Mondays. Natalie couldn't help the accusatory tone. Nicholas jumped, turning so fast he almost knocked over the pan. You startled me. Sorry, but seriously, what is that? She pointed at the culinary disaster. Attempted breakfast. He looked at the mess with something like embarrassment. I normally eat out or order in, but I thought, first day as whatever we are, I should make an effort. It was a kind gesture buried under layers of incompetence. And despite everything, Natalie felt her lips trembling into something that might be a smile. Move over. She gently pushed him aside. Before you burn the place down. Natalie took over, throwing out the ruined eggs and starting fresh. Nicholas stood there, watching with a mixture of fascination and mortification. My father taught me to cook, she said, cracking new eggs into the pan. After my mother died, it was just the two of us. He couldn't make anything beyond sandwiches, so I learned out of necessity. Your mother died when you were 7. Natalie stirred the eggs with practiced movements. Car accident. It was quick, they said. She didn't suffer. I'm sorry. What about your father? Natalie dared to ask. Do you have family? Nicholas went rigid. None that matter. I saw the photo. Natalie decided to risk it. In the library. You and my father. He wrote that you were like a son to him. The silence that followed was so thick Natalie almost regretted mentioning it. But then Nicholas spoke, his voice so low she barely heard. Your father saved me. Natalie turned off the heat, turned completely to face him. Saved you how? Nicholas moved to the window, looking out at the city waking up, his back to her, as if he couldn't say this while looking in her eyes. I was 22, fresh out of law school, working for a firm that did things I wasn't proud of. We defended terrible people. I knew it. But they paid well and I needed the money. He took a deep breath. One day, your father showed up. Potential client. Needed someone to handle his will, protect his assets. But when we sat down to talk, he asked me if I was happy. No one had ever asked me that. His voice broke slightly. I fell apart, told him everything. How I hated the work. How I was trapped in student debt. How my family had disowned me for not following their military tradition. And you know what your father did? What? Natalie whispered. He paid off my debts, all of them. $400,000 in student loans, just paid them. And then he offered me a job as his personal attorney. Said he saw potential, that I deserved a chance to do something that mattered. Nicholas finally turned, and there were tears in his eyes. The first real emotion she'd seen. For 8 years, your father was more family to me than my blood ever was. He taught me that kindness exists, that good people exist. And when he asked, begged me to marry you, to protect you, how could I refuse? Natalie felt her own tears falling. You loved my father. Like a son loves a father, Nicholas admitted. And that makes all of this, he gestured between them, complicated. Because I feel like I'm fulfilling his last wish, but I also feel like I'm trapping you in something you didn't ask for. You're not trapping me. Natalie took a step closer. Nicholas, I chose this. I could have refused, but I chose to trust my father. And now, she hesitated. Now I'm choosing to get to know you. Really know you. Not just as a lawyer or contract husband, but as the person my father loved. Nicholas looked at her, really looked, and something passed between them. Something fragile, but real. The eggs are cold, he finally said, but he was almost smiling. Then reheat them, and this time, you watch. Because if we're going to live together, you need to learn not to burn food. They spent the next hour in the kitchen, Nicholas watching while Natalie reheated breakfast and explained basic techniques. He asked questions. She laughed at his attempts. And slowly, very slowly, walls began to crack. When they finally sat down to eat, Nicholas looked at her across the table. Thank you for not hating me, for trying. Thank you for loving my father, for showing up when he needed you. It was a beginning. Small, fragile, but it was a beginning. And neither of them realized they were planting seeds of something much deeper than friendship, something that would grow if they let it. 2 weeks of careful coexistence, 2 weeks of silent dinners that slowly became less silent. 2 weeks where Natalie learned that Nicholas read poetry in secret. She'd found a book of Neruda in the bathroom. 2 weeks where Nicholas discovered she sang off-key when cooking. He never mentioned it, but she saw the almost smile. And then everything crumbled when Natalie came home to find the apartment destroyed. It wasn't a common break-in. It was a message. Paintings ripped from walls. Sofa slashed open. And on the living room wall, in red paint that looked like blood, but Natalie hoped wasn't. Return what's ours. She was frozen in the doorway when she heard footsteps. She turned, ready to scream, and saw Nicholas. He looked around, his face draining of color, then immediately pulled Natalie out of the apartment. Don't touch anything. Don't go in. He was already calling. Yes, I need to report a break-in. Direct threat. He gave the address. Then hung up and finally looked at Natalie. Are you okay? Hurt? I just got here. I was at work and... Reality hit. Nicholas, what did they want? Who did this? 2 hours later, the apartment was full of police, crime scene photographers, and a middle-aged detective named Costa who looked too tired for this life. So, Mr. Fairmont? Costa looked at his notes. You believe this is related to the late James Barnes? I'm certain of it. Nicholas sat next to Natalie in the hallway, his hand finding hers automatically. She noticed she was trembling and he noticed too, squeezing gently. James had questionable associates from his past, people who thought he owed them parts of his rare book collection. Books? Costa raised an eyebrow. What kind of books are worth breaking in and making threats? First editions, manuscripts, some 500 years old. Nicholas explained. His collection was worth approximately $2 million, and certain people believed they had rights to specific pieces. What people? Nicholas hesitated, looked at Natalie. You need to know something about your father, something he never wanted you to know. Natalie's stomach dropped. Back at the hotel apartment Nicholas had arranged for the night, he'd refused to let her return to the vandalized apartment. Nicholas finally told the complete truth. Your father wasn't just a book collector. He was a recoverer of stolen artifacts. Nicholas was pacing. When your mother died, he had a breakdown, deep depression, and to cope, he started tracking rare books that had been stolen from families during wars, dictatorships, looting. He stole them back. Natalie was trying to process. He recovered them, bought them, negotiated, did whatever was necessary to return them to their rightful owners or their families. Nicholas finally sat down. It was his obsession, becoming better, doing something that mattered. And the people who wanted the collection were criminals, people he'd recovered books from, people who thought he owed them compensation. Nicholas took her hands. Your father knew they'd eventually come after you. That's why the will. That's why the marriage. Because my name, my reputation as a lawyer, carries enough weight to make them think twice. So I'm bait? Natalie pulled away. You used me as bait to draw them out? No. Nicholas followed her. No, Natalie, I'm protecting you. But they're more brazen than I thought. More desperate. Who are they? Nicholas took a deep breath. The Dimitrov family. Russian mobsters. Your father recovered a medieval manuscript from their private library 5 years ago. They want it back. Natalie felt the world spinning. My father was involved with the Russian mafia. He was trying to fix their wrongs. But yes. Nicholas knelt in front of her. And now they think you have the manuscript, that it's hidden in the collection you inherited. Do I? No. Your father returned it to a museum in Moscow years ago, but the Dimitrovs don't believe that, and they'll keep pushing until... A loud knock on the hotel door made them both jump. Nicholas tensed. "Stay behind me." He went to the door, looked through the peephole, relaxed, marginally. "It's Costa." The detective entered, looking serious. "We have a problem. Your building cameras caught the intruders. We recognize them. Dimitrov Bratva, as you suspected, Fairmont. Were they arrested?" Natalie asked hopefully. "They're diplomats. Immunity." Costa looked frustrated. "But this means they know where you live. They'll escalate. You need to leave the city. Now." Nicholas was already grabbing his phone. "I have a country house, 2 hours from here. Isolated. Registered under an LLC they won't trace easily." "They will," Costa said. "But it'll buy time. A few days, maybe a week. Long enough for us to find solid evidence that overcomes diplomatic immunity." Natalie was processing too fast. "Country house? We're running?" "We're staying alive," Nicholas corrected. He looked at her. "Natalie, I know this wasn't part of the deal, but I need you to trust me. Please." She looked at this man, her contract husband who was turning out to be so much more, and saw real fear in his eyes. Not for himself, for her. "Okay, let's go." As they packed quickly, as Nicholas made call after call organizing their disappearance, Natalie realized her father hadn't just been protecting an inheritance. He'd been protecting her life. And Nicholas was risking his own life to honor a promise. This wasn't just a contract anymore. This was much more complicated and much more dangerous. The country house sat in the middle of nowhere, dirt road, surrounded by dense forest, no neighbors for miles. It was rustic, but well-maintained. Dark wood, stone fireplace, enormous windows overlooking a private lake. Natalie stepped out of the car. Nicholas had driven the entire 2 hours in tense silence and breathed clean air for the first time in weeks. "Is it safe?" she asked, looking around. It seemed exposed, vulnerable. "Security system is hidden but complete. Cameras around the entire perimeter. Silent alarm connected directly to local police. And..." Nicholas pulled a gun from his waistband. "I know how to use this if necessary." Natalie froze, staring at the gun. "You have a permit?" "I do. And training. And I honestly hope I never need it." He tucked it away again. "But I won't risk your life on hope." It was the first time he'd admitted so directly that she mattered. That she wasn't just an obligation. Inside, the house was cozy in a way his apartment never had been. There were photos here. Young Nicholas with a woman who must be his mother. Teenage Nicholas in military uniform, so he had gone before quitting. Adult Nicholas with her father, laughing on some boat. "Do you come here often?" Natalie asked, touching a frame. "I used to, when I needed to escape. Your father came a few times too. He loved fishing on the lake." Nicholas smiled, small, sad. He said it was the only place where he could think clearly. Natalie felt a connection to her father through this space. "Can I stay in the room where he stayed?" Nicholas hesitated. It's my room now. I moved in there after. But I can sleep on the couch." "No," Natalie decided impulsively. "We'll share. The bed is big enough. And honestly, after everything that's happened, I don't want to be alone." She saw Nicholas swallow hard. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." And strangely, she was. That night, after a simple dinner, Nicholas grilling steaks without burning them, progress, they sat on the porch looking at the stars. Natalie wrapped in a blanket, Nicholas beside her with coffee, respectful space between them. "Can I ask a personal question?" Natalie broke the silence. "You can try. Why did you never really get married? Before me, I mean." Nicholas was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "I was engaged, 6 years ago. Her name was Rebecca. We met in college. We planned our whole lives together. He sipped his coffee. And then she met my older brother. The perfect son my parents always wanted. Army officer. War hero. Everything I wasn't. Natalie felt her heart squeeze. She left me 3 weeks before the wedding. Said she realized she wanted someone more substantial. Someone my parents would approve of. Someone who wasn't. He laughed bitterly. A disappointment. Nicholas. My brother married her 6 months later. My parents went. I wasn't invited, and that was the last time I spoke to any of them. He finally looked at Natalie. So yes, I built walls, because letting people in hurts, and I'm not interested in being hurt again. Natalie understood now. The coldness, the distance. It was a survival mechanism. My father was the exception? She asked gently. The only one. He didn't judge. Didn't want me to be something different. He just accepted me. Nicholas wiped his eyes quickly, and now he's gone. And I keep thinking that if I'd been a better friend, a better adopted son, maybe. Don't. Natalie took his hand. Don't do that to yourself. My father loved you. Clearly. And he knew you loved him too. They stayed like that. Hands intertwined, stars above, barriers slowly crumbling. Until Nicholas spoke. You're not an obligation to me, you know. I'm not? When your father asked me to protect you, I thought it would be a burden. A duty. But then I met you, and you're the first person since your father who makes me want to lower the walls. Who makes me think that maybe, just maybe, risking it again is worth it. Natalie's heart was pounding so hard she was certain he could hear it. Nicholas, you don't need to say anything. He squeezed her hand. I just needed you to know. This, us, doesn't feel like a contract to me anymore, and I don't know what to do with that. Natalie didn't know either. But when they went inside, when they lay in the same bed maintaining careful distance, when she woke in the middle of the night to find him watching her with eyes full of something she couldn't name, she thought she was feeling it too. And it was terrifying, and wonderful, and completely unplanned. But maybe, just maybe, it was exactly what they both needed. The storm arrived on the third night. Not just rain, lightning that tore through the sky, thunder that shook the foundations, wind that made the windows tremble. Natalie woke in a panic, disoriented, and automatically reached for Nicholas. He was beside her, already awake, staring out the window. Is it bad? She asked, her voice small. Yes. Power will probably go out. As if in response, the lights flickered and died. Total darkness. Called it. Nicholas turned on his phone's flashlight, illuminating the path to the fireplace. I'll start a fire. You okay here? Natalie nodded, though her hands were shaking. Not from cold, from memories. You're afraid of storms, Nicholas observed as he fed the fire. It wasn't a question. My mother died in a storm. Natalie hugged her knees. She was driving, heavy rain. She lost control of the car, and every time I hear thunder, I just go back to that day, waiting for her to come home. A police officer knocking on the door instead of her. Nicholas abandoned the fireplace and sat beside her on the couch. You were 7 years old. 7 years and 3 months. And after that it was just me and my father. And he tried so hard to be both, father and mother. But there was this sadness in him that never completely went away. Tears started. And now he's gone too. And I'm alone. You're not alone. Nicholas pulled her into his arms. The first real embrace since they'd married. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. Natalie cried against his chest. Grief for her father, for her mother, for the normalcy she'd never had. And Nicholas just held her, his hand tracing slow circles on her back, murmuring comfort she didn't understand but felt. When the tears finally stopped, they stayed there. Fire crackling, storm raging outside. Natalie nestled against Nicholas in a way that should have been strange but felt Right. Can I confess something? Nicholas whispered. Anything. When your father asked me to marry you, part of me was angry, because it felt like him controlling my life from beyond the grave, forcing a decision that would change everything. He paused. But another part, a part I didn't even admit to myself, was relieved. Relieved? Because it meant connection, family, something beyond the emptiness my life had become. He looked down at her in his arms. And then I met you. And you were beautiful even while crying, strong even when broken. And I thought maybe your father knew exactly what he was doing. Natalie's heart stopped. What are you saying? I'm saying this isn't a contract to me anymore. It's not obligation or duty or a promise to a dead man. Nicholas tilted her face to look at him. I'm saying I'm falling, Natalie. Falling hard and fast. And it's terrifying because I don't do this. I don't let people in. But you're dismantling every defense I've built. Natalie could barely breathe. Nicholas, you don't need to feel the same. You don't need to say anything back. I just needed you to know that when I look at you, I don't see obligation. I see a future. And that's new and scary and completely out of my control. Natalie should pull back. Should remember this started as a transaction, that he himself said it would be temporary, that they were both a mess of issues and trauma. But when she looked into his eyes, vulnerable for the first time, no mask, just human, she couldn't lie. I'm falling too, she whispered. And I don't know what to do because I just lost my father, and I don't know if this is real or if I just need someone to hold on to. And I'm so scared of ruining this like I've ruined everything in my life. Nicholas kissed her. It was soft, tentative, asking permission even in the act. And when she leaned in, when her fingers tangled in his hair, when they both opened to each other for the first time, it wasn't just a kiss. It was a promise. It was a choice. It was two broken hearts deciding to try again. When they pulled apart, they were both crying, laughing, holding each other like they might disappear. This is crazy, Natalie said, completely. Nicholas agreed. We're going to hurt each other. Probably. And I have no idea how to do this. Neither do I. He pressed his forehead to hers. But I want to figure it out. With you. If you'll let me. Outside, the storm kept raging. But inside, near the fire, in each other's arms, they found something like peace. And when they eventually returned to bed, this time with no space between them, tangled together in real sleep, they both thought the same thing. Maybe Natalie's father had known exactly what he was doing. Maybe this arranged marriage was less about protection and more about giving two lonely souls a chance to find each other. Natalie woke to sunlight streaming through the curtains and a sudden realization. She was tangled up in Nicholas, her leg over his head on her shoulder, arms completely intertwined. And it wasn't just innocent sleep position. There was an intimacy here that hadn't existed before, because last night they'd crossed a line, not sexually, but emotionally. And that was more terrifying. Nicholas woke slowly, his eyes opening to find her already watching. For a moment he just smiled, small, genuine, vulnerable. Then realization hit him too. Good morning, voice rough from sleep. Good morning. Natalie didn't move, neither did he. About last night, Nicholas began. Don't regret it, Natalie interrupted. Please don't regret it. I don't. He pulled back just enough to see her face. But I'm processing, because I spent 6 years building walls, and you tore them down in 3 weeks. And I don't know how to handle that. They spent the morning in careful silence. Nicholas making coffee without burning it. Miracle. Natalie preparing toast. Moving around each other in the small kitchen with new awareness of every touch, every glance. We need to talk about what happens after, Nicholas finally said when they sat down. After? When the Dimitrovs are arrested. When the threat passes. When you don't need protection anymore. He stirred his coffee without drinking. The contract said 6 months to a year, then divorce. You're free. Natalie felt her stomach drop. Is that what you want? Divorce? It's what we promised. What we agreed to. Nicholas looked at her. But that was before feelings got involved. And now? Now I don't know. Brutal honesty. Because part of me wants to hold you and never let go. But another part is terrified you'll realize you can do better. That you'll find someone who isn't a mess of issues. And you'll leave me. Natalie understood. Because she felt the same fear. What if we don't want a divorce? She asked quietly. What if we want to try for real? Then we try. Nicholas took her hand. But Natalie, you need to understand. I don't know how to do this. Relationships, intimacy. I'm designed to fail. So am I. She squeezed back. So we fail together, or we learn together. But at least we're not alone. Nicholas's phone rang, breaking the moment. He checked it, frowned. It's Costa, he answered. Fairmont. Pause. His face darkened. When? I see. Yes, we're safe. Keep me updated. He hung up, looked at Natalie with an expression she couldn't read. They found one of the Dimitrovs, dead, shot in the head, professional execution. Natalie felt her blood run cold. What does that mean? It means there's a new player, someone more dangerous than the Dimitrovs. Nicholas was already checking security systems, locks, his gun. Someone who wants to eliminate the competition before coming after you. Who? I don't know, but Costa is investigating your father's connections, all of them, because apparently there was more than just the Dimitrovs in his history. Natalie's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She looked at Nicholas, who nodded, recording on. She answered on speaker. Hello. Distorted voice, electronic, impossible to identify gender or age. Natalie Barnes, or should I say Fairmont now? Beautiful wedding. Shame it won't last. Nicholas tried to trace the call, but already knew it was useless. The voice continued. Your father took something that wasn't his. A manuscript? No. That was just a distraction. The real treasure is hidden, and you're going to give it to me, or your new husband will join your father in the cemetery. The line went dead. Absolute silence. Then Nicholas was moving, grabbing weapons, checking doors, calling Costa. But Natalie was frozen. Because the voice had said, new husband. Like they knew the marriage was recent. Like they'd been watching. Nicholas? She could barely form the words. They know. About us. About everything. I know. He came back, gripping her shoulders. But I'm not going to let anything happen to you, understand? Nothing. What if something happens to you? The question hung there. Because that's what Natalie realized now. She wasn't just afraid for her own life. She was afraid for his. Because in 3 weeks, this man had become everything. It won't, Nicholas promised, because I have too many reasons to stay alive now. He kissed her, quick, intense. You're my reason, Natalie, and I'm not letting anyone take that away from me. But as they prepared their defenses, as they waited for the invisible enemy's next move, they both thought the same thing. They'd just found each other, and the universe was already trying to tear them apart. The question was the love that had barely begun strong enough to survive? There has to be something we're missing. Natalie was surrounded by boxes, all filled with her father's books they'd brought from storage 3 days ago. 3 days locked in the house, security systems on maximum, both jumping at every sound. 3 days searching for a manuscript they didn't even know existed. My father left a clue. He had to. Nicholas was at the laptop, combing through her father's emails for the 1000th time. He mentioned the real treasure once, in an email from 2 years ago. But we thought he was talking about the collection in general. Read it again. Nicholas pulled up the email. Dear Nicholas, the real treasure is not what they think. It's hidden where only she can find it, where love and memory meet. I thought it was philosophical, but... Where love and memory meet, Natalie repeated, then froze. Wait, he always said that love lives in memories, and he kept memories in... She ran to the bedroom. Nicholas behind her. Natalie pulled a box from under the bed, old photo album. Flipping through yellowed pages, Natalie found childhood photos, mother and father together, her as a baby. And then, a page she didn't remember seeing before, a photo of an ancient book, lying open showing beautiful medieval illuminations. In the margin, in her father's handwriting. For Natalie, the true inheritance, not the value, the message. What message? Nicholas was looking over her shoulder. Natalie studied the photo more closely. The illuminations showed stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things, saving others, sacrificing, loving. It's not about money, she whispered. It never was. It's about how we live, about the choices we make. But where's the actual manuscript? Natalie turned the page. There was a taped envelope. Inside, a small key and a note. Safe in the office, behind the Neruda. Nicholas was running before she finished reading. Her father's office, a room Natalie had barely entered since his death, was exactly as he'd left it. Books in stacks, papers scattered, the smell of the pipe he'd smoked in secret, and an entire shelf of Neruda. Which book? Nicholas was checking each one. 20 love poems, Natalie knew without checking. It was my mother's favorite. He read it to her every night. Behind the book, embedded in the wall, a small safe. The key fit perfectly. Inside, not a medieval manuscript. Something different. A modern notebook, leather-bound, filled with her father's handwriting. Natalie opened it with trembling hands. First page. For Natalie, the truth about who I am, and why I married you to Nicholas. The next hours were revelation. Her father wasn't just an artifact recoverer. He was an informant. He'd worked with Interpol to dismantle international art smuggling networks. The criminals threatening Natalie? They didn't want manuscripts. They wanted the notebook. They wanted names, dates, operations, everything that could destroy an international art crime empire. He was protecting you from this. Nicholas was reading over her shoulder. By marrying you to me, he ensured you'd have legal protection. My firm has resources to keep evidence safe, to defend you. And put you in danger, too. Natalie realized with horror. Nicholas, if they know you have this, they already know. That's why the threat. He closed the notebook. But now we have leverage. We know what they want, and we can use it. How? Natalie was terrified. We can't just give it to them? Of course not. We give it to Interpol, and let them handle it. Nicholas was already calling. Costa has contacts. He can arrange a secure transfer. But as he spoke, as he organized the protection scheme, the window glass exploded. It wasn't a rock. It was a tear gas grenade. Nicholas screamed for Natalie to get down, covered her body with his, as gas filled the room. She heard pounding, the door being broken down, voices in Russian, heavy footsteps. Nicholas! She could barely breathe. Stay with me. He was dragging her to the hall, to the safe room he'd built without her knowing. Don't let go. But then there was a figure in the doorway. Gas mask. Gun pointed. And the distorted voice from the phone, now clear. I'm sorry, but you left me no choice. The person fired. Nicholas pushed Natalie back, taking the bullet meant for her. He fell, and Natalie screamed, a primal sound of something breaking inside her. Because she'd just found him, just started loving him, and she wouldn't lose him too. The hospital corridor smelled of disinfectant and fear. Natalie sat in a hard plastic chair, still wearing clothes stained with blood. Nicholas's blood, waiting. Always waiting. It had been 3 hours since the ambulance. 3 hours since she'd watched paramedics work frantically. 3 hours since a doctor said significant blood loss and emergency surgery. and other words her mind wouldn't process. Costa stood beside her, silent. They'd caught the shooter, a junior member of a crime syndicate who thought killing Nicholas and taking the notebook would earn him a promotion. Stupid. Desperate. Now arrested. But that didn't bring Nicholas back. Mrs. Fairmont, a young doctor, appeared. Your husband survived the surgery. Natalie collapsed. The tears she'd held for 3 hours finally fell. Nicholas was pale against white sheets, tubes and wires connected to machines that beeped a steady rhythm, eyes closed, so still that Natalie had to watch his chest rise and fall to believe he was alive. She sat beside the bed, taking his hand, so cold. It had always been warm, always been an anchor. You're an idiot, she whispered, crying. You shouldn't have protected me, shouldn't have put yourself in front. Of course he didn't respond, sedated, recovering. I love you. The words came out, the first time she'd said them aloud. I love you, and you can't die before hearing that, before knowing that you're everything, Nicholas. In 3 weeks you became everything. His fingers moved, just a fraction, but she felt it. His eyes opened slowly, taking time to focus. When he saw her, his lips curved into a weak smile. You, okay? Voice hoarse, destroyed. Am I okay? You took a bullet, but you are alive, so worth it. He coughed, grimacing in pain. Natalie was crying and laughing simultaneously. You're impossible. And you love me? There was hope in his eyes, vulnerability, so much. She leaned down, kissing his forehead. So much it scares me. Nicholas spent 2 days in the hospital. 2 days where Natalie didn't leave his side. 2 days of Costa bringing updates. Syndicate dismantled, notebook with Interpol, threats neutralized. 2 days of Nicholas waking and sleeping, but always looking for her first. On the second night, when he was more alert, more himself, Nicholas finally spoke about what he'd been thinking. When I saw that gun pointed at you, the only thing I thought was that I couldn't let you die. Not when we just started. He was holding her hand, thumb tracing circles. And I realized that it doesn't matter how much time we have. 3 weeks, 3 years, 3 decades. It'll always be too little. I'll always want more. Nicholas, let me finish. He pulled her closer. I married you because of a promise, but I'm staying with you by choice. Because you're the first person in years who makes me want a future, who makes me believe I can be loved even though I'm a mess. You're not a mess. I am, but you love me anyway. He smiled. And that's a miracle I didn't expect. Natalie kissed him, careful of his injuries, but full of promise. So when we get out of here, when you recover, we try for real. No expiration date, no contract. Just us. Nicholas agreed. Learning together, failing together, loving together. Medical discharge came 3 days later. Nicholas still weak, but insisting on going home. Natalie was packing his belongings when a nurse appeared with an envelope. This was delivered for you. The messenger said it was urgent. Natalie opened it. Inside, a single sheet of paper, her father's handwriting. If you're reading this, it means Nicholas saved you. Just as I knew he would. Because he loves you, Natalie. Has loved you since I showed him your photo a year ago. Since I told him about my brilliant daughter who was trapped in a small life. I didn't force a marriage. I gave you both a push, the excuse you needed to find each other. Because I recognize soulmates when I see them. And you too? You're broken in the same ways. You heal each other. Be happy. Live well. And Nicholas, thank you for loving my daughter the way she's always deserved to be loved. With all my love, James. Natalie was crying. Nicholas was too when she read it to him. He knew, Nicholas whispered. That impossible man knew before we did. He was always smarter than he looked. Natalie laughed through her tears. And as they left the hospital, Nicholas leaning on her, she leaning on him, they both thought, Her father hadn't just protected Natalie. He'd given them both the gift of a lifetime. Love, real, imperfect, absolutely perfect. Recovery was slow, frustrating. Nicholas, accustomed to controlling everything, had to accept help. Had to let Natalie change his bandages, prepare his medication, help him shower when he was still too weak. And each moment of vulnerability was simultaneously humiliating and liberating. "I used to be self-sufficient," he complained when Natalie helped him sit up for dinner. "And you will be again. But for now, let someone take care of you." She kissed the top of his head. Because that's what people who love each other do. It was the first time she'd said it so casually, as if it were established fact, not terrifying confession. Nicholas caught her hand. "Say it again." "What? That I love you?" She smiled. "I love you. I love you. I love you." Better? Perfect. Weeks passed. Nicholas grew stronger. But something had changed between them, not just physically but fundamentally. They talked now. Really talked. About fears, dreams, trauma. Nicholas told her about a childhood where affection was weakness, where his brother was always the favorite, where he'd learned to be invisible to avoid disappointment. Natalie told him about growing up without a mother, about feeling like she'd never be enough to fill the void she'd left, about a loving but distant father, always lost in his own memories. "We're quite a pair, aren't we?" Nicholas said one night, both on the couch. "Two emotional orphans looking for family. And we found it." Natalie was nestled against him. In each other. It was simple, but it was everything. 1 month after the shooting, Nicholas was well enough to return to work. But when he arrived at the office, he found something unexpected, an invitation to dinner with his mother and brother. They want to reconnect. He told Natalie that night, looking at the invitation like it was a trap. They said they heard about the shooting, that they were worried, that they want to meet you. And do you want to see them? I don't know. Brutal honesty. Part of me wants to tell them to go to hell, that they abandoned me when I needed them and don't deserve a second chance. But another part wants family, Natalie completed, even if it's complicated. You understand? Completely. Because I'd do anything for one more day with my father, even if it was difficult. She took his hand. So let's go. Together. And if it's horrible, we leave. But at least we try. Nicholas kissed her. Those kisses that had become their own language. Gratitude, love, recognition. What did I do to deserve you? You took a bullet for me. I think that counts. Dinner was at an elegant restaurant. Nicholas's family was already there when they arrived. Nicholas's mother was an elegant woman in her 60s who looked like she'd been crying recently. His brother was an older copy of him, but with a hardness Nicholas didn't have. Nicholas. His mother stood, hesitant. You're okay? We heard you were seriously injured." "I'm fine." Nicholas was rigid. "This is Natalie, my wife." There was obvious shock. "Wife? You got married?" "2 months ago, for complicated reasons, but..." He looked at Natalie. "That became simple, because I love her." His brother, David, coughed. Straight to the point, typical. They sat, uncomfortable silence. Then his mother spoke, voice broken. "Nicholas, we made mistakes. Terrible ones. We abandoned you when you needed us. We chose sides when we should have stayed neutral. And Rebecca is divorced now," David interrupted. "She realized too late that she married me to impress our parents, not for love." "And you?" Nicholas asked, voice carefully neutral. "Did you love her?" "I thought I did, but I think I just liked winning, being chosen over you for the first time." David looked down. "And that made me a monster. I'm sorry." The words hung there. Natalie squeezed Nicholas's hand under the table. Silent support. "Why now?" Nicholas finally asked. "Why after 6 years of silence do you show up?" His mother took a deep breath. Because we almost lost you, and we realize that stupid pride cost us a son, and we're not letting that happen again." She leaned forward. "We're not asking for instant forgiveness, or even eventual forgiveness, but we're asking for a chance to know you, to know your wife, to maybe eventually be a family again." Nicholas was trembling. Natalie felt it, and she intervened for the first time. "Can I say something?" Everyone looked at her. "Nicholas spent 6 years building a life without you, and he was fine, more than fine. But he also carried pain, and anger, and a feeling of never being enough." She looked at his mother, then David. "So if you're here out of guilt or obligation, please leave. But if you're here because you genuinely want to know the incredible man he's become, then stay and prove it." Silence. Then his mother smiled, through tears. "I like her. She's fierce. She learned from the best," Nicholas said, looking at Natalie with obvious love. And slowly, very slowly, conversation began. It wasn't perfect. There were still wounds, still hurt, but it was a beginning. And sometimes, beginning is enough. "Are you sure about this?" Natalie was looking at the white dress. Simple, elegant, nothing like the rushed courthouse wedding. "We don't need to make a big production. We're already married. But not the right way." Nicholas stood behind her, hands on her shoulders. "We married out of obligation, for protection. I want to marry you again. This time for love. This time with family present. This time the way you deserve." His reflection in the mirror showed a transformed man, still serious, still intense. But there was lightness now, a peace he hadn't had 6 months ago. "Is your brother coming?" Natalie asked. "He and my mother, and some of my friends, plus your friends." Nicholas kissed her shoulder. 20 people, garden at the country house, intimate and perfect. Like you, like us. The day dawned clear, no clouds, as if the universe were cooperating. Natalie was in the country house bedroom, the same one where everything had changed during the storm, being helped by Nicholas's mother. "He loves you completely, you know." Margaret was adjusting the veil. "I've talked to my son more in 6 months than in 6 years. And it's all because of you. You brought him back." "He brought himself back," Natalie corrected. "I just was there. Sometimes being there is all someone needs." Below, in the garden, Nicholas was nervous. David beside him, his best man, something that would have been unthinkable a year ago. "You're shaking," David observed. "I'm terrified," Nicholas admitted. "What if she changes her mind? What if she realizes she can do better?" "She won't, because she looks at you the way Mom looked at Dad, like you're her entire universe." David squeezed his brother's shoulder. "And you deserve that. Finally." The ceremony was everything neither of them had known they wanted. Small, intimate, real. When Natalie walked through the garden, no father to give her away, but carrying a red rose in his honor, Nicholas cried openly. "You're beautiful," he whispered when she reached him. "You're repeating yourself." She smiled through her own tears. The officiant, the same one who'd married them the first time, now genuinely smiling, cleared his throat. "We're gathered here to witness Nicholas and Natalie renewing their vows. Vows they made 6 months ago for complicated reasons. But that today they renew for the simplest reason. Love." Nicholas went first. No papers. From the heart. "Natalie, when I met you I was broken, convinced that love was weakness, that letting someone in was an invitation to pain. And then you came into my life. Forced, not chosen. And slowly, gently, you broke down every defense I'd built." His voice trembled. "You taught me that love isn't weakness. It's courage. Courage to be vulnerable. To admit I need someone. To choose to wake up every day and try again." He took her hands. "So I promise to choose you, every day, in the good times when it's easy and the hard times when it's work. I promise to see you, really see you, even when you try to hide. And I promise to love you, not despite your imperfections, but because of them. Because your imperfections match mine, and together, we're whole. Now Natalie, also without papers. Nicholas, my father gave me many gifts in life, but the greatest was you. He knew, before we knew, that we needed each other, two wounded souls who could heal together. Tears flowed freely. You saved me from a life where I accepted crumbs, where I'd become so small I was disappearing, and you didn't do it by telling me I was worth more. You did it by showing me, every day, in 1,000 small ways. She squeezed his hands. So I promise to do the same. I promise to show you every day that you're loved, that you're enough, that you don't need to be perfect to be precious. And I promise to build a life with you, not the one society expects, but the one we create, with love, with laughter, with brutal honesty and fierce kindness. She smiled through the tears. I promise to choose you, today, tomorrow, forever. New rings, not of contract but of commitment, were exchanged. By the laws of this state and by the obvious love between you, I pronounce you husband and wife. Again. But this time, for real. The kiss was different from all they'd shared. It was promise, it was celebration, it was future. And when they pulled apart, laughing and crying, surrounded by 20 people who loved them, they knew they'd started wrong. Contract, obligation, fear. But they'd ended right. Love, choice, peace. And sometimes, crooked paths lead to the most perfect destinations.